21 days of silence, the transformation nobody talks about. There comes a season when God doesn't ask you to speak, but to be still. Challenge you to love enough and care enough, not because you've done something wrong, not because you've lost your way, but because He's preparing you for something your words can't yet describe. These 21 days of silence aren't punishment, they're positioning. In silence, distractions die. In silence, your spirit learns to breathe again. We live in a world addicted to noise, scrolling, talking, proving, reacting. But transformation never happens in the noise. It happens when the crowd leaves, when the notifications stop, and when you sit alone with your thoughts long enough to hear what heaven has been whispering all along. For 21 days, God might strip away your audience, your applause, and even your usual confidence. You'll wonder, why does it feel so quiet? Why do I feel so hidden? But hear this, He's not hiding you from the world, He's hiding you for the world. Silence is His secret workshop. It's where He reforges the weapon, refines the vessel, and renews the voice that will one day speak with authority. During these 21 days, your emotions will wrestle. Your ego will crave validation. You'll reach for your phone, your comfort, your distractions. But something in your soul will say, stay, listen. Because when God calls you into silence, He's calling you into sensitivity. The noise outside has been too loud for too long. You've been surviving on secondhand revelation. But silence teaches you to hear your own anointing. It's in that still place where clarity is born. You'll begin to recognize the difference between who you were and who you're becoming. Old patterns will rise up, trying to pull you back. But the new version of you is learning to sit through the discomfort. You're learning that silence is not the absence of movement, it's the preparation for divine motion. When you come out of those 21 days, people won't understand what happened. They'll see your peace, but won't know the price. They'll sense your strength, but won't know the struggle. Transformation in silence leaves no witnesses. It leaves only evidence. So if you're in that quiet season right now, don't fight it. Don't rush it. Don't speak just to fill the void. Let the silence stretch you. Let it refine your focus. Let it expose what doesn't belong in your next chapter. You are not losing your voice, you're tuning it. When you emerge, your words will carry weight. Your presence will shift rooms. Your discernment will sharpen. The same people who once overlooked you will sense something different. Because you've been with God in silence. These 21 days are not ordinary days. They are sacred days. They are the womb of your next dimension. Nobody talks about it because it's uncomfortable. Nobody celebrates it because it's lonely. Those who endure it, those who stay still when everything in them wants to run, will rise with a power that can't be faked. There comes a time in every life when the noise must stop, not because you've run out of things to say, because heaven has decided it's time for you to listen. Silence is not the absence of activity, it is the presence of divine construction. It's the sacred space where God does His deepest, quietest work. When the world stops applauding, when the phone stops buzzing, when conversations fade into memory, that's when God begins to build what can't be built in the chaos. We often think growth happens in the spotlight. Crave progress we can post, results we can measure, affirmations we can hear. But God doesn't shape destiny in public view. He molds it in private silence. The workshop of heaven is not filled with noise and clatter. It's filled with stillness. It's the kind of quiet that presses you to look inward, to face what you've been avoiding, to listen to what you've been drowning out. In the workshop of silence, takes the fragments of your life, the broken dreams, the quiet disappointments, the unspoken prayers, and begins to piece them together with divine precision. You don't see the blueprint. You can't hear the hammer. You'll feel the shift inside you. There's something sacred about silence because it strips away everything superficial and leaves only what's real. When God invites you into silence, it's not to isolate you, but to insulate you. He's pulling you away from the noise, not because you're forgotten, but because you're fragile in this stage of transformation. A seed doesn't grow in the open air. It grows underground, in the dark, in silence. So do you. Sometimes you'll sit in that silence and think nothing is happening. But everything is happening. The silence is breaking old attachments. It's healing wounds that words could never touch. It's reordering your priorities, reawakening your discernment, and repairing your identity. You'll start to notice things you never did before. How loud your fears used to be, how easily your peace was disturbed, dependent you were on validation that never truly satisfied. In God's workshop, silence becomes the anvil where character is forged. The distractions that once defined you lose their grip. The opinions that once controlled you begin to fade. In their place grows a quiet confidence that comes not from applause, but from assurance. Silence teaches you that you don't need to prove your worth. You only need to protect your peace. The problem is that silence makes us uncomfortable. We've been conditioned to equate noise with progress. If it's not visible, if it's not loud, we assume it's not valuable. The greatest movements of God are often hidden. Think of the womb, completely silent, yet it's the place of life's greatest miracle. Think of the tomb, sealed and still, yet it became the stage of resurrection. Silence doesn't mean God is still. It means He's working beneath the surface, preparing to reveal what only He can complete. It's in silence that you discover the voice of God is never rushed. It's steady, subtle, and strong. You can't hear it when your world is full of static. You can't discern it when your spirit is overcrowded. But when you finally surrender to stillness, His voice becomes unmistakable. It's not the thunder, it's the whisper that shakes your soul awake. In this divine workshop, God begins to dismantle the scaffolding you built around your fears. He strips away the unnecessary layers, the image, the ego, the expectations, and gets down to the foundation. He looks at who you are without the performance, without the pressure, without the pretense. And there, in the rawness of silence, He rebuilds you, not into who you were, but into who you were always meant to be. You'll begin to understand that not every battle needs your voice. Some victories require your quiet. There's power in holding your peace, in allowing God to speak where your emotions want to scream. Because when you stop reacting, you start receiving. You start hearing instruction instead of interference. You start gaining revelation instead of giving explanations. In silence, your faith matures. You stop demanding signs and start trusting timing. You realize that waiting is not wasting. It's training. Every moment of quiet obedience sharpens your spirit, strengthens your patience, and expands your capacity. Silence becomes your gym, your classroom, your sanctuary. And when you finally come out of it, you'll move differently. You'll speak differently. You'll live differently. The most remarkable part of this workshop is that others won't notice the process. They'll only see the product. They'll see your peace and not know the panic you overcame. They'll see your strength and not know the silence that shaped it. They'll see your wisdom, and not realize it was carved in nights of wordless prayer and lonely surrender. The transformation happens privately so the testimony can be shared publicly. When you learn to embrace silence, you stop fearing solitude. You stop chasing noise to feel relevant. You start realizing that divine work takes divine patience. God doesn't rush masterpieces. He chisels, refines, polishes, and perfects. Each quiet moment is a stroke of His hand shaping your destiny. So if you find yourself in that season where everything is quiet, where the calls stop, the doors close, and the crowd disappears, don't panic. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. The silence is not your enemy. It's your environment for transformation. God is using it to rewire your thoughts, to reset your emotions, to restore your focus. Stay in the workshop. Stay in the stillness. Stop trying to escape the process. You don't need to rush to the next chapter. You need to let this one finish right in itself. Because when God is done, when the silence breaks, you'll step out carrying more peace, more power, and more purpose than you ever thought possible. And when you speak again, your words won't just fill space, they'll carry weight. Because silence isn't wasted time. It's holy ground. It's where heaven's blueprint is drawn. It's where warriors are trained. It's where voices are refined. Silence is God's workshop, and if you can learn to trust what He's doing there, you'll never fear quiet seasons again. You'll understand that the quiet was never empty. It was sacred. The stillness was never dull. It was divine. Silence was never about nothing. It was about everything. For in the hush of your heart, when all else is stripped away, God shapes what the world will one day see. And when he's finished, your life will speak louder than any noise ever could. We live in a world that never stops talking. Notifications ping, voices echo, opinions compete for attention. We've become so accustomed to the constant hum of noise that silence now feels strange, even uncomfortable. Yet it's that very noise. Those endless distractions, the constant chatter, pressure to always respond. That clouds our vision and drowns out the voice that matters most. Noise hides clarity. And until you learn to turn it down, you'll never truly hear what God or your own soul has been trying to say all along. Noise doesn't just live outside of you, it lives within you. It's that restless feeling that makes you reach for your phone when your spirit is uneasy. It's the urge to scroll when your heart feels heavy. It's the endless cycle of doing, chasing, and reacting because you're afraid of what might surface in the quiet. But clarity, true clarity, never shouts. It whispers. It waits. It settles in only when the chaos clears. The tragedy of our generation is that we've confused movement with meaning and noise with purpose. We think because we're busy, we're progressing. We think because people are talking, something important is happening. But just because something is loud doesn't mean it's leading you anywhere. Sometimes the loudest things in your life are the very distractions keeping you from discovering direction. When you're surrounded by noise, it's like trying to see your reflection in stormy water. The surface is too disturbed to reveal anything real. The same is true of your mind and spirit. Constantly disrupted by outside influences, social media, opinions, comparisons, you can't see yourself clearly. You lose your sense of purpose because you're too busy reacting to the world instead of responding to God. Clarity requires stillness. It requires you to separate yourself from what's clamoring for your attention. It's in the quiet where you begin to discern what's truly important from what's simply urgent. It's where you learn that not every voice deserves an answer, and not every opportunity deserves your energy. Sometimes the noise isn't just external, it's emotional. It's the noise of doubt, the chatter of insecurity, the echo of old wounds replaying in your mind. Challenge your love enough and care enough. That kind of noise can be louder than any crowd. It convinces you that you're behind, that you're not enough, that you have to keep running to catch up. Clarity doesn't chase. Clarity comes when you stop running long enough to breathe, to think, to listen. Noise hides the voice of intuition. It hides divine instruction. It hides peace. That's why God will sometimes pull you away from everything familiar. He'll let certain doors close, certain people distance, and certain opportunities pause. Not because he's withholding something, but because he's removing interference. He knows that as long as the noise keeps blaring, you won't catch the revelation he's trying to send. You see, the world teaches you to react instantly, to post before you pray, to speak before you think, to move before you meditate. But clarity is born in pause. It's born in the gap between stimulus and response. The wisest decisions are not made in the noise of urgency. They're made in the calm of understanding. That's why some of the most powerful breakthroughs don't come during moments of excitement, but in moments of still reflection. When you quiet the noise, you begin to notice what you'd been missing. You start seeing patterns in your pain, lessons in your losses, and direction in your delays. You realize that half the confusion you once battled was never spiritual, it was simply environmental. You were too surrounded, too stimulated, too distracted to see clearly. When you remove the clutter, clarity naturally comes. Noise also feeds fear, keeps you occupied so you never have to confront what's really happening inside. Because if you ever got quiet enough, you might have to face the truth that some relationships have expired, that some habits are destroying your peace, that some dreams aren't aligned with your purpose anymore. And yet facing that truth is where freedom begins. Clarity doesn't always feel comfortable, but it's always worth it. The greatest leaders, thinkers, and spiritual warriors throughout history all had one thing in common. They learned to retreat into silence to find direction. They understood that the voice of clarity never competes. It waits for the noise to die down. That's why you can't expect to find peace while still entertaining chaos. You can't expect divine guidance while filling your mind with every opinion that passes by. The moment you start turning down the volume of the world, something powerful happens. You begin to hear your own thoughts again. You reconnect with your convictions. You rediscover the dreams that got buried beneath business. You start recognizing the difference between what you want and what you need. That's the gift of silence. It gives you back your perspective. There's a reason Jesus often withdrew to solitary places to pray. It wasn't that he didn't care about the people, it was that he needed clarity before continuing the mission. Even the Son of God understood that the noise of the crowd can drown out the still, small voice of heaven. So if he needed solitude to see clearly, how much more do we? Noise is deceptive because it feels productive. It feels alive. It tricks you into thinking that activity equals advancement. Motion without meaning leads to exhaustion, not elevation. Many are spinning in circles, drained and directionless, because they've never learned to silence their surroundings. Those who master stillness learn that clarity doesn't come from chaos. It comes from communion, and communion happens in quiet. It's the sacred exchange where confusion is traded for comprehension and anxiety is replaced with assurance. It's when God whispers, "This is the way, walk in it." And you finally have the peace to listen. If you want to see your next step clearly, you must first step away from the noise. Turn off the things that are too loud but add no value. Step back from conversations that drain you but don't define you. Separate from situations that stir up confusion more than conviction. You'll be amazed at how quickly your mind clears, how easily your spirit aligns. Naturally, your peace returns. Noise hides clarity, but silence reveals it. The quiet doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something real is forming. It means your mind is decluttering, your heart is recalibrating, and your spirit is hearing what it couldn't hear before. Clarity is never absent. It's just often buried under layers of unnecessary sound. So learn to retreat without guilt. Learn to protect your peace without apology. Learn to create silence even in a noisy world. Because in the stillness, you'll rediscover the voice that never left you. It was just waiting for you to listen. When the noise fades, the truth becomes loud. You realize who you are, where you're going, and what's worth keeping. You stop chasing shadows and start walking in substance. You begin to understand that clarity isn't a gift for the few. It's a promise for the still. And once you've tasted that kind of peace, you'll never again trade it for the chaos of noise. The noise may have hidden your clarity for a while, but it cannot keep it forever. For the moment you choose silence over distraction, discernment over reaction, and peace over panic, your path begins to illuminate again. You finally see that everything you were looking for was never missing. It was merely muffled. And in that revelation, you find your power. You find your purpose. You find yourself. There are seasons in life when it feels like you've been tucked away. When doors close, opportunities dry up. People who once celebrated you no longer call your name. It feels like you've been placed on a shelf, unseen and unheard, while the world keeps moving forward without you. In those moments, you begin to wonder, did God forget me? But hear this truth. Hidden does not mean forgotten. God hides what he values. He conceals what he's cultivating. When he pulls you out of view, he's not neglecting you. He's nurturing you. We live in a culture obsessed with visibility. Everyone wants to be seen, validated, recognized. We measure worth by attention, and when the attention fades, so does our confidence. But God doesn't measure significance by visibility. He measures it by purpose. Just because no one can see what you're doing doesn't mean not divine. God does his best work in secret places, in the dark soil, in the quiet process, in the unseen hours when nobody's watching. Before a seed becomes a tree, it must be buried. It must disappear beneath the surface, out of sight. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing is happening. But beneath the ground, roots are growing, structure is forming, and destiny is unfolding. That's what the hidden season feels like. You've been planted, not buried. The darkness is not your grave, it's your greenhouse. When God hides you, it's because he's protecting you. He knows what you're becoming can't survive premature exposure. You're not ready for public weight without private strength. And so He pulls you aside. He keeps you off the stage. He quiets the applause because what he's forming inside you is too fragile to handle the crowd right now. He wants to make sure your roots go deep before your branches reach high. It's easy to mistake this season for abandonment. You look around and see others thriving, opportunities multiplying, and your faith starts to tremble. But God doesn't compare clocks. He's not late. He's precise. You're not behind. You're being built. You're not overlooked. You're being observed. Heaven has its eye on you even when earth doesn't. In the hidden season, God teaches you dependence. When no one's cheering, you learn to draw strength from the Spirit. When no one's watching, you learn integrity. When no one's affirming you, you learn identity. You stop performing for approval and start producing from authenticity. Because the hidden season strips away everything fake. It removes the mask you wore to belong and leaves only the version of you that's aligned with your purpose. Being hidden hurts because it feels like stillness. It feels like delay. You pray, you work, you believe, and still nothing seems to shift. But that's what refining feels like. It's not fast, it's faithful. The fire of obscurity doesn't destroy you, it purifies you. Every delay is burning off dependence on people, on timing, on applause. You start learning that your value doesn't increase when you're visible. It was already written in heaven long before anyone knew your name. Think of David. Before he ever held a crown, he was hidden in a field, forgotten by his family, overlooked by his father, yet seen by God. When the prophet came to anoint a king, David wasn't even invited to the lineup, but God said, that's the one. Because man looks at appearance, but God looks at the heart. David's hidden season in the pasture was preparing him for the palace. The isolation was the incubation for his anointing. The same God who hid David is the same God who hides you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You can't lead publicly what you haven't mastered privately. You can't carry the weight of influence without the discipline of obscurity. God is using the hidden season to train your hands, to test your motives, to purify your intentions. He's making sure that when the spotlight finds you, it doesn't expose cracks in your foundation. And make no mistake, he hasn't forgotten. The silence of heaven is not the absence of activity, it's the sound of divine strategy. God is aligning connections, setting up opportunities, and orchestrating moments you can't yet see. While you're wondering when, he's working on how. While you're asking why, he's perfecting what. The delay is not denial, it's design. You see, when you're hidden, your faith is refined. You learn to believe without evidence, to praise without proof, to trust without clarity. And that's what makes you unshakable. Because once you've walked through a season where only God saw you and still kept going, you'll never need human validation again. The hidden ones come out with a different kind of strength, the kind that can't be faked, bought, or broken. There's a reason diamonds are formed under pressure and away from sight. Their brilliance comes from years of hidden transformation. You're no different. Every test, every tear, every lonely night is adding weight to your worth. You may not feel seen now, but you're being shaped for something greater than attention. You're being prepared for assignment. When the time comes, God will reveal you. When he does, it will be undeniable. People will see the grace, the wisdom, the authority, but they won't know the process. They won't know the nights you cried, the prayers you whispered, the battles you fought in silence. They'll see the fruit, but they'll never know the root. That's what the hidden season does. It gives you depth that others can't duplicate. So if you're in that place right now where you feel unseen, unheard, uncelebrated, take heart. You are hidden, not forgotten. Heaven still knows your name. The work is still unfolding. The purpose is still alive. Don't despise this chapter just because no one's watching. God writes his best stories in private before he publishes them in public. Stay faithful in the field. Keep tending your sheep. Keep showing up in excellence even when no one claps. Keep praying even when it feels quiet. Keep sowing even when the soil looks still. Because when the time is right, God will lift the veil. The same field that hid you will one day highlight you. Hidden doesn't mean small, it means sacred. It means God is protecting his investment in you. You're not missing out, you're being matured. And when you finally step into the season of visibility, you won't just shine, you'll stand. Because you'll know your worth isn't in being seen. It's in being chosen. So breathe, trust, stay grounded. You are hidden, but not forgotten. When God decides the world is ready for what He's been building inside you, He will reveal you in His own perfect time. Until then, rest in the truth that unseen does not mean unvalued. It means you are loved enough to be refined in private so you can be powerful in public. Hidden is holy. Hidden is safe. Hidden is sacred. Hidden is divine preparation for the unveiling that's on its way. There is a kind of silence that doesn't just still your lips, it shakes your soul. It's the kind of silence that reveals what you really want when no one's watching, when no one's listening, when no one's clapping. That silence is not empty, it's testing ground. It's the place where your motives are exposed, your priorities are revealed, and your desires are purified. We often think silence is a pause from progress, but it's not. It's a proving place. When God draws you into a season of silence, He's not trying to punish you. He's trying to purify you. He's filtering your heart through quiet, removing the noise that's been clouding your motives. Because sometimes we chase things that sound holy but are secretly fueled by ego. Sometimes we pray for blessings we're not ready to steward. Silence has a way of separating what you want from what you truly need. In the silence, you begin to see what your heart has been clinging to. When the noise dies down, when the applause stops, when there's no external reward, what keeps you going? Do you still serve when no one sees? Do you still pray when no one listens? Do you still love when no one applauds? The silence tests all that. It strips away performance and asks, why are you really doing this? The truth is, silence doesn't change your desires, it reveals them. When everything around you quiets, real voice of your heart gets loud. The ambition, the fear, the need for validation, the hunger for approval, it all rises to the surface. And that's exactly where God wants you, because He can't heal what you hide. He can't refine what you refuse to face. Silence brings your inner world into focus, not to shame you, but to shape you. You see, anyone can be faithful when they're being celebrated. Anyone can stay focused when they're surrounded by noise and excitement. But silence strips all that away. It removes the thrill, the affirmation, the feedback. It's in that stillness that God asks, do you love me enough to stay when you don't feel me? Will you obey me even when I'm quiet? Will you trust me when I'm invisible? That's what the test of silence feels like. Lonely, uncertain, humbling. It's a season that demands endurance without evidence. You're praying, but heaven is silent. You're sowing, but there's no harvest. You're moving, there's no momentum. Yet in that sacred space, God is watching not to judge you, but to see what's left when everything superficial fades. When you no longer have a stage, do you still have a song? When you no longer have a crowd, do you still have conviction? When you no longer feel inspired, do you still stay faithful? That's what silence asks. It doesn't flatter your faith, it filters it. Because real faith is not proven in the spotlight, it's proven in the shadows. Sometimes God will withhold the sound of progress just to see if you still have the strength to persist. Quiet the noise around you so the noise within you can be silenced. Because if He doesn't test your desires, you might mistake your craving for attention as a calling. You might chase platforms instead of purpose. You might confuse comfort with confirmation. Silence tests whether your heart wants Him or just the benefits of Him. It tests whether your prayers are driven by love or by longing for results. It tests whether your dream is rooted in purpose or pride. The silence is not meant to frustrate you. It's meant to free you. It's God's way of detoxing your motives so that when He blesses you, the blessing won't break you. In silence, you start to recognize how easily you've been feeding off feedback. You start realizing that so much of your energy was tied to being seen, being appreciated, being praised. And when that's gone, you feel the emptiness that only purpose can fill. Silence doesn't let you hide behind activity. It forces you into authenticity. It demands that your desire for God outweigh your desire for gratification. It's in those quiet moments that you face the most honest version of yourself. There's no crowd to impress, no expectations to perform for, just you and the truth. You start asking yourself hard questions. Why do I want this so badly? Am I chasing purpose? Am I chasing validation? And though those questions sting, they are holy. Because God can't take you where He's calling you until your desires align with His will. Think of Jesus in the wilderness. Before He began His public ministry, He was led by the Spirit into silence and solitude. For 40 days, there was no crowd, no disciples, miracles, just testing. In that silence, every false desire was confronted. The enemy tempted Him with comfort, recognition, and power, but Jesus refused because He understood something we often forget. If you don't conquer temptation in silence, it will conquer you in success. So God allows silence to sift you before He elevates you. He uses it to test if you're ready for the weight of your next level. Because in silence, there's no one to impress. There's no room for pretending. It's just you unfiltered, unguarded, unmasked. That's where purity is born. That's where passion becomes purpose. And yes, silence can be uncomfortable. It can make you restless, questioning everything. Your direction, your timing, your worth. But don't mistake discomfort for distance. God's silence is not absence, it's assessment. It's His way of measuring the maturity of your desires. He's asking, can you be content with me alone? Can you still trust when there's no tangible sign? The silence is where selfish ambition dies. It's where you stop praying for platform and start praying for purity. It's where you stop chasing what looks good and start longing for what's right. You stop asking, when will I be seen? And start asking, am I ready to be used? Silence doesn't just quiet your surroundings. It quiets your spirit until only truth remains. And when you finally emerge from that season, you'll notice something different about yourself. Your desires won't be as loud. Your spirit will be calmer. Your goals will be cleaner. You'll crave less recognition and more revelation. You'll no longer chase every opportunity. You'll wait for divine assignment. That's what happens when silence tests your desires. It purifies your pursuit. So if you're in that quiet place, don't despise it. Don't rush it. Fill it with artificial noise just to feel comfortable. Sit in it. Let it stretch you. Let it reveal you. Because God is not trying to take something from you. He's trying to take something out of you that doesn't belong there. The silence will test your desires, but it will also teach you something powerful. What you really need has been with you all along. It's not the crowd, the applause, the opportunity. It's the connection. The stillness reconnects you with your source. And when that connection is restored, everything else falls into place. So stay in the silence. Don't run from it. Let it refine your motives and reshape your heart. Because when the silence ends, and it will end, you won't emerge empty. You'll come out clearer, stronger, and more aligned than ever before. The desires that survive the silence are the ones heaven can trust. We love the visible. We love what can be measured, seen, and celebrated. We want results that everyone can point to, proof that something is happening. But real transformation doesn't work that way. True change is quiet, hidden, often painfully invisible. It happens in the unseen places, in the silent seasons when nothing appears to be moving, yet everything inside you is being rearranged by God. Transformation is not an event, it's a process. And the thing about process is that it rarely looks powerful while it's happening. Caterpillar doesn't look like it's becoming a butterfly while wrapped in its cocoon. It looks still. It looks stuck. It looks unremarkable. Inside that darkness, everything is shifting. The same happens with us. God does His deepest work beneath the surface, away from the applause, away from the eyes of others, in the sacred space where your growth can't be measured but is undeniable when revealed. When you're in that invisible phase, it can feel frustrating. You're praying, but nothing's changing. You're working, but nothing's growing. You're believing. Nothing's breaking through. You start wondering if you missed your moment or if God stopped listening. But the truth is, He's working in ways you can't yet perceive. Transformation doesn't announce itself. It unfolds quietly. That's the paradox of divine growth. It feels like stagnation, but it's actually preparation. You're shedding old layers, breaking mental patterns, unlearning habits, and outgrowing environments that no longer fit you. None of that looks impressive from the outside. It's messy, slow, and unseen. The invisible work is what gives visible power. Think of the tree. Before it ever breaks the soil, its roots are spreading wide underground. No one praises a root system. No one posts about what's happening beneath the dirt. But without those unseen roots, challenge you, the tree would never stand when the storms come. The same is true for you. God is strengthening what can't be seen so that when your season of visibility comes, you won't collapse under the weight of it. The invisible transformation is where endurance is built. It's where your character catches up to your calling. It's where your faith learns to function without feelings. Everyone loves the harvest, but few have patience for the hidden growth, because waiting requires trust, and trusting without evidence feels impossible. Yet that's where faith matures, in the tension between what you believe and what you see. During transformation, everything familiar begins to feel uncomfortable. The things that once satisfied you no longer do. The conversations that used to excite you now drain you. The environments that used to feel like home suddenly feel too small. That's how you know you're growing. God is stretching your spirit, enlarging your capacity, and preparing you for more. But it's not a public renovation, it's a private one. The world can't see it yet because the work isn't finished. The invisible seasons are not empty, they are essential. They are the spiritual workshops where discipline is forged, patience is learned, and identity is refined. You can't skip them, because what God is building in you now will sustain you later. The invisible phase is not about impressing others, it's about being transformed into someone who no longer needs to. Sometimes God hides your growth because exposure too soon can destroy you. If people saw you before your roots were ready, their expectations would crush you. So God keeps you covered. He conceals you in obscurity while He completes the process. You may not like it, but it's mercy. He knows what's coming. He knows the storms you'll face, the platforms you'll stand on, the voices you'll influence. He's making sure you can handle it before He hands it to you. Transformation is not glamorous, it's lonely, it's confusing, it's full of contradictions. You'll feel like you're losing parts of yourself, dreams, relationships, comfort zones, but you're not losing, you're shedding. Every transformation involves loss because you can't carry old patterns into new seasons. What used to work will start breaking down, not because you're failing, but because you're evolving. God allows the invisible stage to humble you. It's the season where you learn that growth doesn't need recognition. You start to value authenticity over attention. You stop trying to prove yourself and start trusting the process. You realize that the silence isn't punishment. It's the sound of construction. Every prayer you thought went unanswered was laying a brick. Every moment of stillness was forming structure. Every delay was adding depth. You don't see transformation while it's happening because it's not about appearance, it's about alignment. God is aligning your mind with your mission, your desires with your destiny, your actions with your anointing. And that alignment takes time. You can't rush divine timing any more than you can rush a seed to sprout. The invisible seasons are God's way of protecting the integrity of your destiny. Transformation finally becomes visible. It always looks sudden to everyone else. People will say, you changed overnight, not realizing you were breaking, bending, and building for years in silence. They see the fruit, but they don't see the fight. They see the breakthrough, but they don't know about the breakdowns. They see your confidence, but not the countless nights you doubted yourself. Transformation is invisible until it's undeniable, and yet that invisibility is what makes it sacred. Because no one else can take credit for it. No one else can claim responsibility for what God did in the secret place. When your moment of unveiling comes, everyone will know it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't manipulation. It was God. That's why you can't despise the hidden work. The same silence that feels suffocating is actually shaping you. The same invisibility that feels unfair is actually fortifying you. The same waiting that feels endless is actually evidence that something eternal is being built. God doesn't rush what He intends to last. So if you feel like nothing's happening, keep going, keep praying, keep showing up, keep obeying, even when no one sees you. Because one day, the invisible will become visible. The fruit will match the faith. The manifestation will mirror the preparation. And when it happens, it won't just change your circumstances, it will confirm your purpose. Transformation is not about being seen, it's about being solid. It's about becoming unshakable, unoffended, and unwavering. It's about growing so deeply rooted in God that even if you never get the applause, you still have peace. Because you know that transformation doesn't need an audience, it needs authenticity. So let the process work. God rebuild you quietly. Let the invisible season stretch you, refine you, and prepare you. Because when he finally reveals what he's been for me, it will make sense why you had to be hidden. You'll understand that transformation had to be invisible, because visibility too soon would have ruined the masterpiece he was creating. You may not see the change day by day, but heaven does. Every prayer whispered in faith, every decision made in obedience, every tear shed in surrender, it's all part of the transformation. And when the time is right, what was invisible will shine so brightly that the world will see the glory of what God has done in you. There is a kind of power that cannot be heard, touched, measured. It is quiet, subtle, and often invisible to the casual observer. This power is cultivated in stillness. Stillness is not inactivity. It is intentional alignment with God and self. It is the sacred pause that allows your spirit to catch up with your soul. Most important truth about stillness is this: it builds sensitivity to God, to yourself, and to the world around you. In a noisy world, sensitivity is a lost art. People are too busy talking, scrolling, reacting, and performing to notice the subtleties of life. We are bombarded with information, opinions, and distractions that pull us in every direction. Yet God does his deepest work in silence. When you withdraw into stillness, you allow your senses, spiritual, emotional, and mental, to recalibrate. You start hearing what you've been missing. You start seeing what was hidden. You begin to feel the vibrations of life that were drowned out by chaos. Stillness is not just a physical act, it is a posture of the soul. It's the choice to pause, to breathe, to reflect, and to listen. When you step away from constant movement, you create space for God to speak and for truth to settle into your spirit. In that space, sensitivity grows. You begin to discern the voice of God from the noise of your own thoughts. You begin to feel the difference between actions that honor your purpose and those that distract from it. You begin to notice the subtle currents of energy and emotion in the people around you. The reason stillness builds sensitivity is because it teaches attentiveness. When everything is loud, your senses are dull. When you're constantly moving, your spirit becomes numb. But in stillness, you are forced to listen, to really listen. You hear whispers of wisdom that are lost in noise. You sense danger before it strikes. You recognize opportunities before they become obvious. You perceive the needs of others with clarity that only comes from being fully present. Sensitivity is cultivated when your mind is quiet enough to notice, your heart is still enough to feel, and your spirit is awake enough to respond. Stillness also cultivates empathy. When you slow down, you can see people more clearly. You notice their struggles, their joys, their unspoken pain. The world trains us to be reactive, to judge quickly, and to respond before understanding. Stillness flips that pattern. It slows you down long enough to notice the humanity in others, to feel what they feel, to act with compassion instead of impulse. Sensitivity born of stillness is not weak, it is powerful. It is the ability to move through the world with discernment, grace, and awareness. In spiritual terms, stillness sharpens your sensitivity to God's voice. The louder the world becomes, the more you risk missing divine instruction. God speaks in whispers, nudges, and subtle promptings. If your life is a constant clamor, you cannot hear him. But when you embrace stillness, your spirit is tuned to detect his movement. You recognize the timing of his intervention, the guidance in his word, and the peace in his promises. Sensitivity to God's presence transforms decisions, deepens faith, and strengthens obedience. Stillness is also the classroom for emotional sensitivity. In the quiet, you are confronted with your own heart. Your fears, desires, and patterns rise to the surface. You begin to notice what triggers you, what motivates you, and what drains you. This self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. You learn to respond to life with intentionality rather than reaction. You notice subtleties in your own behavior that you previously ignored. And this heightened awareness allows you to navigate relationships, opportunities, challenges with wisdom. The physical world also responds to those who cultivate stillness. A quiet spirit perceives the unspoken messages in people's eyes, tension in a room, or the energy in a space. Sensitivity is the skill of noticing without being told, of understanding without explanation, of reacting with care rather than haste. Stillness develops this skill because it creates space for observation, reflection, and intuition. You cannot see clearly when you're moving too fast. You cannot hear truth when your mind is cluttered. Stillness is the lens that sharpens perception. Paradox is that stillness often feels like doing nothing, yet it produces everything. You may sit in silence and think nothing is happening. Transformation is occurring. Your mind is aligning, your heart is softening, your spirit is attuning. Sensitivity grows in this invisible process. A musical instrument, your senses are being tuned to the right frequency so that when life plays its notes, you can respond harmoniously rather than chaotically. Stillness is also the antidote to impulsivity. People who never practice quiet tend to react to circumstances rather than respond to them. They are driven by emotion, habit, or pressure. Those who embrace stillness learn restraint. They pause, reflect, and consider before acting. This patience develops sensitivity. They sense what is appropriate, what is timely, and what is impactful. They move with precision rather than chaos. Sensitivity is a byproduct of intentional pause. God often uses stillness to prepare us for seasons of visibility and influence. Before leaders speak, they often spend time in quiet reflection. Before prophets prophesy, they spend time alone with God. Before teachers teach, they cultivate understanding in solitude. The invisible preparation is what ensures that when action is required, it is effective and impactful. Stillness builds sensitivity, and sensitivity ensures that action is aligned with purpose rather than impulse. Even in trials, stillness is powerful. When chaos surrounds you, choosing stillness sharpens perception. You notice solutions that others overlook. You hear guidance that others ignore. You feel direction that others miss. Sensitivity is cultivated not in comfort, but in moments where the world is loud and your faith must discern. Calm center becomes the source of insight, creativity, and strength. Ultimately, stillness is about surrender. It's the acknowledgement that you cannot control everything and that God's timing is perfect. When you are still, you open yourself to influence rather than manipulation. You are receptive rather than reactive. Sensitivity grows when your soul is quiet enough to perceive what matters most. It is in these quiet moments that God shapes your heart, aligns your mind, and tunes your spirit to recognize truth. So if you want to cultivate sensitivity, spiritual, emotional, relational, you must learn to embrace stillness. Turn down the noise, step away from constant stimulation, sit in quiet reflection, observe your thoughts, listen to your heart, feel the world around you. Pay attention to the subtle currents that others ignore. In doing so, you will discover a depth of awareness and discernment that cannot be taught. It can only be experienced. The world will try to convince you that stillness is wasted time. The world will pressure you to always move, always produce, always perform. Those who understand the power of stillness know better. Stillness is not wasted. It is sacred. Stillness is not empty. It is full of potential. Stillness is not weakness. It is the crucible where sensitivity is forged. And when sensitivity grows, so does influence. You notice what others miss. You respond with insight, empathy, and precision. You understand dynamics before they unfold. You see truth beneath the surface. Stillness does not just build awareness. It builds authority, wisdom, and discernment. Those who cultivate stillness are the ones who navigate life with grace rather than struggle, with clarity rather than confusion, with purpose rather than panic. Stillness builds sensitivity because it teaches presence. Presence in God, presence in your own heart, presence in the lives of others. Sensitivity is the gift of presence, the ability to perceive, understand, and respond. And presence is cultivated in the quiet. The more still you are, the more attuned you become. The more attuned you become, the more powerful and compassionate you are in every aspect of life. So embrace stillness. Fear silence. Don't rush to fill every moment with noise or action. Step into the pause. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and listen intently. Allow your senses to awaken. Let your heart soften. Open your spirit. In the stillness, sensitivity grows. And sensitivity, once cultivated, change the way you see, feel, and move through the world forever. Transformation is rarely quiet. Change is rarely easy. Growth almost always comes with conflict, not with others necessarily, but with yourself. One of the most overlooked truths about personal evolution is that the old you will resist. Every time you try to step into a new season, embrace a higher calling or pursue a purpose that stretches you beyond comfort, something within you will fight. That resistance is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of awakening. It's a sign of awakening. It's the old version of you clinging to familiarity, trying to protect itself from what it doesn't yet understand. The old you is comfortable. It knows its habits, its routines, its limits. It thrives in predictability and fears disruption. The moment you attempt to rise above it, the old you sends up alarms. You'll notice it in the little ways: hesitation before taking a risk, self-doubt creeping in at the last minute, excuses masquerading as wisdom. The old you whispers, stay where it's safe. Even when safety has become stagnation, it clings to old patterns, old environments, old relationships, old mindsets, and old fears. Its resistance is a natural instinct. It's self-preservation masquerading as caution. Resistance is not just emotional, spiritual, and mental. The old you has been trained to respond to life in a certain way. It knows what comfort feels like, what validation tastes like, what survival looks like. But transformation asks for more than survival. It asks for thriving. It asks for sacrifice, patience, discipline, and sometimes solitude. And every time you step toward the new, the old you kicks back. This resistance shows up as fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of loss. Old you fears the unknown because it knows nothing about the terrain ahead. It clings to what's familiar, even if what's familiar is holding you back. It's the voice that says, you're not ready yet, even when God has already prepared you. It's the mental tug of war between the person you are and the person you are becoming. The old you also resists through distraction. You'll find yourself busy with meaningless tasks, busy with excuses, busy with people or projects that don't align with your growth. The old you doesn't want you to focus on purpose because purpose requires accountability, effort, and vulnerability. Distraction is a tool of resistance. It keeps you from facing what you need to face, from doing what you need to do, from becoming who you're meant to become. Resistance is often disguised as comfort. You might hear the old you say, you deserve a break, or you've done enough. On the surface, these sound reasonable, but in reality, they're delaying tactics. The old you knows that transformation requires discomfort. Growth requires discomfort. Expansion demands that you leave the familiar behind, so disguises resistance as rest, safety, and contentment. And if you listen too long, the old you can keep you stuck in mediocrity while the new you waits impatiently to emerge. Another way the old you resists is through self-doubt. You may question your calling, your ability, your timing. You may ask, am I really ready for this? Can I handle it? These thoughts are not your new self. They are the old self's way of holding back what's already been promised. Doubt is the shadow of fear, and the old you thrives in shadows because shadows are familiar and safe. Transformation requires light, but light is uncomfortable until you learn to embrace it. The old you resists through attachment. Old habits, old friendships, old environments, they all serve as chains. Some of these attachments may be good, some may be neutral. If they anchor you to a version of life that no longer serves your growth, the old you clings. God's calling often requires you to release attachments so you can rise into alignment. Resistance shows up as sentimentality, nostalgia, or hesitation to let go, even when release is essential for progress. But here's the truth: resistance is not a sign that transformation is impossible. On the contrary, it is proof that transformation is happening. If the old you didn't resist, growth wouldn't be real. Change that feels comfortable is rarely change at all. Real transformation is uncomfortable because it stretches every part of you. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and even physically, the old you fights because it knows that if it loses, everything will be different. And that's exactly the point. The old you resists because transformation requires surrender. Surrendering means giving up control, admitting that you don't have all the answers, trusting in God's timing and process. It means saying yes to a higher calling even when fear wants to say no. Resistance is the internal struggle between holding on and letting go. It's the tension between what you've known and what you've been called to become. In the face of resistance, patience becomes essential. The old you will not disappear overnight. It will push, pull, and protest. Will remind you of your limitations and whispered doubts when you're most vulnerable. But with consistency, discipline, and faith, the new you begins to emerge. Every choice to act in courage rather than comfort, every decision to step into discomfort rather than cling to familiarity weakens the old you and strengthens the new. Faith is the lever that moves you through resistance. Belief in purpose, trust in God, and confidence in your calling are essential tools for confronting the old self. The old you will resist because it fears the unknown. Faith gives you the courage to step anyway. It gives you the resolve to persevere when hesitation tempts you to retreat. Faith allows you to see beyond the temporary discomfort of resistance into the eternal reward of transformation. Discipline is also required. The old you resist because it prefers convenience over commitment. Transformation requires daily choices, consistent habits, and a willingness to do what the old self does not want to do. Every time you choose obedience over convenience, courage over comfort, purpose over preference, you weaken resistance and empower growth. Discipline is the tool that slowly reshapes the old you into the new you, brick by brick, choice by choice. Sometimes resistance shows up in relationships. People who knew the old you may struggle with the new you. They may not understand your growth, your new boundaries, or your higher calling. The old you feels loyalty to comfort and familiarity, and it resists change that threatens the status quo. Part of transformation is learning to navigate these relational challenges without letting them derail your progress. Growth often requires leaving behind what no longer aligns with your destiny. The old you will also resist through procrastination and indecision. You may find yourself delaying steps you know are necessary. You may linger in analysis paralysis because the familiar is easier than the unknown. Resistance wants to keep you safe, even if safe is stagnant. Transformation demands action, and every moment of hesitation is a victory for the old self. Overcoming resistance requires courage to act despite discomfort, fear, and uncertainty. But here's the promise: every act of courage chips away at the old you. Every step of faith, every sacrifice, every moment of obedience builds the new self. Resistance cannot withstand consistent determination, persistent prayer, unwavering focus. The old you resists because it wants to protect you from risk, but the new you rises because it trusts in destiny, purpose, and God's hand. The old you will resist because it fears transformation, but transformation is inevitable when you remain aligned with God. Resistance is temporary, change is permanent. The discomfort, hesitation, and doubt will pass, but the growth you achieve will remain. The old you will continue to try to hold on, but eventually it is replaced by a stronger, wiser, more resilient version of yourself, the you that God intended from the beginning. So when you feel resistance rising within you, don't panic. Don't give in. Don't retreat. Recognize it for what it is: the old you trying to maintain control, the old you resisting what God has already ordained, the old you protecting what it can no longer carry. Step forward anyway. Push through fear, hesitation, and doubt. Every step toward the new you is a step away from limitation and toward purpose. The old you will resist, but the new you will rise. And when it does, you will understand why the struggle was necessary. Resistance was never the enemy. It was the proving ground. The fight within yourself was the forge. Every moment of hesitation, fear, and doubt was an opportunity to strengthen resolve. And when the old you finally releases its grip, you emerge stronger, wiser, and fully aligned with your destiny. Transformation is never easy. It is often uncomfortable. It is almost always met with resistance, but it is always worth it. The old you will resist, yes, but the new you is unstoppable. Step forward, keep faith, and trust the process. The resistance is temporary. The breakthrough is eternal. There comes a time in every life when preparation is complete, when patience has been tested, and when seasons of silence, struggle, and discipline converge into a moment of emergence. This is the moment when you step into the fullness of your calling, into the measure of your influence, and into the authority that God has ordained for your life. But understand this, emerging with authority is not a product of coincidence, popularity, or luck. It is the result of relentless preparation, divine alignment, courage to walk through the unseen work that shapes greatness. Authority is rarely given, it is earned. True authority does not demand respect. It commands it through character, wisdom, and integrity. The world may try to define authority by titles, positions, or appearances, but divine authority is different. It is a weight carried silently until the time is right to wield it publicly. Emerging with authority is a declaration that you have endured, learned, and matured in ways that the casual observer cannot comprehend. It is the evidence that preparation meets opportunity and destiny meets discipline. Emergence is preceded by obscurity. Every leader, every visionary, every person of influence has walked through seasons where they felt unseen, unheard, and undervalued. These are not wasted seasons. They are the workshops of authority. In the silence of obscurity, your character is refined, your mindset is strengthened, and your skills are sharpened. You learn patience, endurance, and the art of steady progress even when no one is watching. It is in this quiet preparation that the seeds of authority are sown. Authority demands clarity of purpose. To emerge with power and influence, you must know why you are here and what you have been called to do. Clarity is cultivated in seasons of reflection and stillness. When you ask the hard questions and confront the truth about yourself, you discover your strengths, acknowledge your weaknesses, and align your intentions with your calling. The authority that emerges from clarity is unshakable because it is rooted in understanding, conviction, divine mandate. Emerging with authority also requires courage. The old self resists, fear confronts, and the world tests you at every turn. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the determination to act despite fear. Those who emerge with authority do so because they have learned to move through uncertainty, to embrace risk, and to step into responsibility when comfort tempts them to retreat. Authority is forged in moments where hesitation could have prevented your rise. Boldness allowed it to flourish. Discipline is another cornerstone of authority. Emergence is never accidental. Every act of preparation, every prayer, every sacrifice, every step of obedience builds the foundation for your influence. The disciplined person does not wait for opportunity to knock. They create the conditions for breakthrough. Authority is the fruit of consistency, perseverance, and a refusal to settle for mediocrity. Those who emerge are not only ready, they are unstoppable. Emerging with authority also involves mastery of self. Influence begins inward. You cannot lead others effectively if you cannot govern your own mind, emotions, and choices. The person who rises with authority has conquered fear, disciplined thought, and aligned actions with principles. They have learned to respond instead of react, to think strategically, and to act decisively. The authority they carry is a reflection of mastery cultivated in private before it is displayed publicly. Authority is relational. Merging with power does not mean dominating others, it means serving with wisdom. True authority uplifts, empowers, and guides, recognizes responsibility over privilege. Those who rise without sensitivity risk arrogance. Those who emerge with humility and discernment establish lasting influence. Authority is not measured by how many follow you. It is measured by the depth of impact you create in the lives of those entrusted to your sphere. Emergence is also about timing. God's authority is never rushed. Every step of preparation is orchestrated for a season when alignment meets opportunity. Patience is essential because authority wielded too early can be dangerous. Like a sword untested, influence without preparation can cut the wielder as much as it affects others. Emerging with authority requires trust in the process, faith in timing, and readiness to act when doors finally open. Trials are inevitable in the journey to authority. Every obstacle, opposition, and delay is a test designed to strengthen resilience. Authority does not rise on a foundation of comfort. It is forged in fire. Resistance from the world, pushback from peers, and challenges from circumstance refine leadership and fortify character. Those who emerge with authority have survived storms that would have discouraged the unprepared. Their authority is proven in adversity, validated by endurance, and empowered by experience. Emerging with authority is also about vision. Leaders are not defined merely by position, but by foresight. Authority carries responsibility for shaping the future. Those who emerge with influence do so because they can see what others cannot, because they understand the weight of their responsibility, and because they act with intention. Vision amplifies authority because it provides direction and inspires trust in those who follow. Authority without vision is empty. Vision without authority is ineffective. Faith is the backbone of emerging authority. It is the belief in unseen outcomes, the trust in divine timing, confidence that preparation is never wasted. Those who rise with authority know that their power is not their own. It is entrusted, anointed, empowered. Faith sustains in moments of invisibility, encourages in moments of delay, and propels action when circumstances seem impossible. Authority grounded in faith endures because it relies on divine support rather than human validation. Emerging with authority transforms not just the individual, but the world around them. Authority is influence with responsibility, power with purpose, and leadership with integrity. Those who rise leave a legacy. They shift systems, inspire generations, and establish structures that outlast them. Authority is never self-serving, it is life-giving. Emerging with authority is about stepping fully into the role God prepared for you and fulfilling it with excellence. To emerge with authority, you must embrace the process, the preparation, the patience, the trials, the quiet work that no one sees. You must conquer the old self that resists, cultivate discipline, develop vision, and exercise faith. You must learn mastery of self, humility in leadership, and courage in action. You must trust that every invisible season has been building the foundation for this moment of unveiling. When the time comes, your emergence will be undeniable. People will notice, yes, but they will not fully understand the journey it took to reach this place. They will see the results. They will not see the countless hours of prayer, reflection, and perseverance. They will witness the authority, but they will not perceive the obedience, humility, and integrity that created it. Emerging with authority is both a revelation and a vindication, a testimony that preparation, patience, faith never fail. In the end, authority is not just about power, it is about responsibility, discernment, and alignment with purpose. Those who emerge with authority are not seeking recognition, they are fulfilling destiny. They are ready because they have endured, prepared, and aligned themselves with God's plan. They have walked through invisible seasons, resisted the pull of the old self, and embraced the discomfort of growth. Their emergence is the manifestation of everything they have invested in, prayed for, and believed in. So stand ready, prepare diligently. Trust the process. Step boldly when the time arrives. The world may not be ready for you, but God has already positioned you. The authority you will carry is not a gift of popularity. It is the crown of preparation. Merging with authority is the declaration that the unseen work was worth it, that trials were necessary, and that your moment of influence has arrived. Walk into it with confidence, humility, and faith, knowing that what God has prepared for you cannot be thwarted. Emerging with authority is your divine inheritance. It is the fruit of seasons unseen, efforts unrecognized, and faith unshaken. Step into it fully, carry it wisely, and lead with a heart aligned with destiny. The world will notice. Heaven has been waiting, and now the time to rise is here. There is a sacredness in silence that the world rarely understands. We live in a culture that equates noise with productivity, visibility with significance, constant movement with success. Yet God often works in ways that are invisible, subtle, and quiet. The quiet season, those moments when doors seem closed, voices seem absent, and the world seems still, is not a void. It is a sacred time, a divine pause that shapes destiny, cultivates character, and prepares the soul for what is yet to come. The quiet season is often misunderstood. To human eyes, it looks like inactivity, delay, or even failure. When nothing seems to be happening, the heart grows impatient, and the mind begins to question, is God still working? Has He forgotten me? Will I ever move forward? These questions are natural, but they reflect a lack of understanding of the sacred work that happens in silence. The quiet season is not a pause in God's plan. It is the plan unfolding in a way that only eternity can measure. One of the first truths about the quiet season is that it is a season of preparation. God does his best work in hidden places. Just as a seed must be buried in darkness to sprout, so too must we often be hidden in order to grow. The quiet season allows for roots to take hold, character to strengthen, and faith to deepen. What is cultivated in stillness is lasting, resilient, and able to withstand storms. God is not idle in silence. He is constructing, perfecting, and aligning what cannot be rushed. The quiet season is a time of reflection. Life moves fast. We are often caught in a whirlwind of responsibilities, distractions, and obligations. In the quiet, God invites us to pause and evaluate. Who are we becoming? Where are we going? What needs to be released? In this sacred stillness, self-examination becomes possible. We begin to see patterns that need correction, motives that need refinement, and relationships that need attention. The quiet season is God's way of giving us a spiritual mirror, showing us what the noise of life often hides. Another purpose of the quiet season is to cultivate intimacy with God. When the external world is silent, the internal world comes alive. You begin to hear the whispers of the Spirit that are drowned out by the clamor of daily life. In the quiet, prayer is deepened, faith is strengthened, spiritual sensitivity is heightened. This season is sacred because it trains the soul to seek God for sustenance rather than for spectacle, to trust his presence rather than his performance, and to recognize that true fulfillment comes from intimacy with him, not validation from the world. Quiet season also teaches patience. Timing is one of God's most profound lessons. We want everything now. We want breakthrough, recognition, opportunity, reward immediately. But the quiet season reminds us that preparation takes time. Just as gold is refined slowly by fire, diamonds are formed over years of pressure, so too is human character and destiny shaped in patience. The sacredness of quiet lies in its ability to teach trust and reliance on divine timing. In silence, we learn that God's pace is perfect when ours feels slow. Isolation is another element of the quiet season, and it is often the most uncomfortable. Human nature resists loneliness. We crave connection, affirmation, and visibility. Yet God often calls us into solitude to separate us from distractions, to purify our motives, to strengthen our resolve. In isolation, we confront ourselves honestly, our fears, our desires, and our weaknesses. This confrontation is sacred because it produces authenticity. The quiet season removes pretense, exposes truth, prepares us to emerge into influence with integrity. The sacred quiet also develops discernment. When the world is loud, it is easy to follow the crowd, be influenced by opinion, or act on impulse. Silence trains the spirit to recognize truth. It sharpens judgment, clarifies vision, and helps us distinguish between what is essential and what is superficial. In the sacred pause, decisions are guided by insight rather than instinct, by principle rather than popularity, and by purpose rather than pressure. The quiet season is not empty. It is the classroom where wisdom is taught. Another dimension of the quiet season is restoration. Life takes a toll on the body, mind, and spirit. Constant activity drains energy and dulls sensitivity. The sacred pause allows for rest, healing, and renewal. It is a time to regain strength, to reconnect with your purpose, and to recalibrate priorities. In stillness, the soul replenishes itself, and the spirit aligns with divine intention. Quiet is sacred because it renews what the chaos of life has worn thin. Faith is also forged in the quiet season. Doors are closed and progress is delayed. Faith is tested. You learn to trust God without visible evidence, to hope without immediate results, to believe without applause. This is the season where reliance on human affirmation fades and dependence on God's promises strengthens. The sacredness of the quiet lies in the cultivation of unwavering trust, the kind of trust that carries you through storms and into breakthroughs. The quiet season is preparation for emergence. Just as a caterpillar disappears into the cocoon before becoming a butterfly, so too must we sometimes be unseen before our season of influence begins. The world may not recognize your growth, but heaven does. Every prayer, every act of obedience, every sacrifice in silence is creating momentum for the moment when God unveils your purpose. The quiet season is sacred because it is the womb of transformation. Even in its discomfort, the quiet season holds profound beauty. It teaches humility, strengthens resilience, and deepens perspective. It allows you to experience life stripped of noise, to find contentment in simplicity, to discover the depth of your own spirit. The sacredness is in the formation of character, the sharpening of faith, and the alignment of destiny. What the world perceives as stagnation is actually divine strategy. Do not despise the quiet season. Do not rush through it. Do not fill it with unnecessary noise or distractions to make it feel productive. Sit in it. Embrace it. Learn from it. Reflect, pray, and listen. Allow the quiet to shape your mind, attune your heart, and strengthen your spirit. This is not a wasted moment. It is a sacred investment in your future, a divine pause that prepares you for impact, influence, and fulfillment. The quiet season is sacred because it is intentional. God orchestrates every pause, every delay, and every moment of stillness to align with your purpose. It is sacred because it builds resilience, cultivates wisdom, and refines your character. It is sacred because it prepares you to step into authority, clarity, and influence with authenticity and power. It is sacred because it reminds you that God's work is never dependent on visibility, applause, or human timing. In conclusion, the quiet season is not empty. It is full. It is not wasted. It is purposeful. It is not passive. It is powerful. In stillness, the soul grows, the spirit strengthens, the heart aligns with God. The sacred pause allows for preparation, reflection, discernment, restoration, and the deepening of faith. It is a time to embrace patience, cultivate trust, and develop resilience. Quiet season is sacred because it is where the invisible work happens. The work that ensures the visible breakthrough will be permanent, meaningful, and aligned with divine destiny. So when life seems still, when doors remain closed, when voices are absent, and the world moves on without notice, remember this: the quiet season is sacred. It is not a pause in your journey. It is the journey. It is not empty. It is full of purpose. It is not a delay. Preparation, embrace it, honor it, and allow it to shape you into the person you were created to become. The quiet season is holy. It is sacred. And it is where God's masterpiece of your life is being carefully, intentionally, and divinely crafted.